Today I'm going to show you the project for fourth grade shading. And in this lesson, you're going to talk to them about shading and how it's a technique used by artists to depict value by applying pencil or whatever media they have, darker or lighter, in order to create the illusion of depth. So it enables an artist to turn a 2D shape into a 3D form. So here's what the finished product's gonna look like. So they're gonna they're gonna draw some two-dimensional shapes, and they're gonna shade them so that they look like 3D forms. And then they're just gonna stack them up just like this. So I'm gonna show you first how to do the project like the one in the sample that I just showed you, but there is a second way to do it. And what you're going to start with first actually in this is this worksheet called Shading and Forms. And what you're going to have the students do is they are first going to learn a little bit about shading, and then they're going to practice shading first. So they're going to make a value scale. So to make that value scale, they'll first color this first square as dark as they can. And then they're going to work on making their shading lighter. So ultimately what you would have is this last square would stay white, and then you would just work up to each square being a little bit darker. So they would just do that. So that will kind of help them get the idea of shading and how they're going to use it and how to apply pressure to the pencil to get the right value that they want. So, and they can do that with a regular pencil, or they can do it with a colored pencil. It's totally whatever you have. So that's how that's going to work. And then after that, they'll see some examples of some shading, and then they'll get to practice themselves on this worksheet. And you do talk a little bit about how shading depends on where your light source is coming. So this example shows that the light source is coming from the right, and then they're going to practice doing it with the light source coming from the left. And again, they can do this with colored pencils, or they can do it with a regular pencil. It doesn't matter. So now that the light source is coming from this side, it would work the opposite way. So the lightest value would be here, and then you would shade the places where it would be a little bit darker, like that. And then they can add the shadow if they want. They don't have to, but there is the shadow in this example. So then they would do the same. They would practice shading these shapes first. That way they've kind of already practiced and gotten the feel of it before they've started on their project. So you don't want to spend too much time on this because you still want the emphasis to be working on the project, but this will kind of give them a chance to practice shading. So then what they're going to do is they're going to take a white piece of paper, and just using a pencil, they're going to draw some shapes. So they can do, and they can do them by hand, or they can use a ruler. It kind of depends on the student. Some students like the precision of using the ruler, and some are totally fine hand drawing the shape. And it's really up to them. It's kind of about making it doable for each student, and so that they like their finished product. Some students just are more precise than others. And definitely have them draw the outlines of these with a pencil, because they are going to need, they're going to have to want to erase. And using that worksheet will kind of help give them the idea of how to draw the different shapes. So I'm just going to draw a few of them here. So, and they're going to want to try to fit maybe like 4 to 6 shapes onto this paper that they have. So what they're gonna have to do before they start shading is they're gonna have to decide which direction they want the light source to come from, because they need to make all of their shapes shaded the same. So they don't want to have like some shapes that appear to have a light source from over here on the left, and then some shapes to have the light source appear to be from on the right. So they just need to decide. And if they want, they could even on their paper, they could just, they could draw like a little light bulb, and that kind of reminds them where their light source is coming from, so they don't forget. So if their light source is coming from the right, their darker shading is going to be on the left. And as they practice, they'll kind of get the idea that how the light shines on the different shapes. So they're just gonna shade these, and they can do these all different colors. They can do them all the same color. It's totally up to them. So I'm just gonna start shading my shapes. So now I've finished all the shading on my shape. So now I've turned two-dimensional shapes into what appears to be 3D forms. So now they're just going to cut out these shapes right on the line. So like I said, they won't include a shadow on these. They'll just shade the actual form and then cut them out. Now I have all my shapes cut out, and so now they're going to use the black sheet of paper. And what I've actually done, this is actually just a 12 by 18 sheet of paper, and I've cut it in half lengthways. That way they're able to stack the shapes and have enough room. And so now they are going to stack the shapes, and they can stack them however they want. The only thing that they need to remember is if they turn a shape upside down, they'll realize that it doesn't look quite right. And that's because if they turn it upside down, the shading is now incorrect because it all needs to match. So if they wanted to go back and do another shape and shade it the opposite direction so they could turn it upside down, that's fine. But just remind them that they can't turn them upside down or their shape or the shading will be incorrect. So they just need to remember, so they can just stack up the shapes however they want. It's totally up to them. So they can make them look like they're kind of tipping, or they can make them look like they're nice and stacked, whatever they want to do. So all they're gonna do is glue these on, and they can glue them on with a glue stick or with the glue cups. It's up to you. I'm not gonna glue these on because I'm gonna show you one more option that you could do instead with this project. So instead of giving them white paper, you could give them sheets of colored construction paper, and I just cut them up here. I just cut them into, and you could use scrap paper. I just cut whole pieces into pieces, and what they could do instead of using colors on white paper is they could use a black colored pencil on the colored construction paper. The key with this is it has to be a black colored pencil, just a regular classroom pencil. It's not dark enough to show up on the colored paper. So I'm just going to show you how that would look instead. So instead they could draw their shapes with the black colored pencil. And again, same idea. If they like to use a ruler to get really precise looking shapes, that's fine. Or if they're fine freehanding them, that's okay. So they're just gonna, same concept, they're gonna draw the shapes and then they're gonna shade them, and they're gonna remember that they've got to shade them the same. So I'm gonna do the same where I'm assuming that the light source is coming from the right. So obviously if the light source is coming from the right side of the shape won't be as dark. And then they would cut this shape out just like they did with the shapes on the white construction paper. So by doing this, it just has a little bit of a different look. It's not a whole lot different, but so it's just up to you and the resources that your classroom has. If they all have a black colored pencil, then that would be fine. And again, they'll figure out that they could shade them differently so that the shapes could be stacked upside down. So instead I could turn this cone upside down and shade it from this direction instead. And what that would do is so that when the cone is put upside down, that it is shaded the right way. So either way, whichever project you decide to do or whichever option, they both turn out great, and the kids have fun stacking the shapes and kind of finding creative way to stack them. This is the finished product if you do the project with the colored construction paper and the black colored pencil instead. So you have the two options in how you want to complete this project. The white construction paper using different colors of colored pencil, or the colored construction paper with a black colored pencil.